Hello and welcome to another episode of Fulham Chronicles. Hello, Melinda.
Hi, Zara.
Look at me, I look so springish.
You do. I'm wearing my black as usual.
But that's right. I think that is your pink colour. You know,
my look.
just suits. How amazing that we have come up to a year.
A year of doing this.
What?
I know. Time flies when you're having fun.
It's like it was yesterday when we started and we were like, oh, figgity, is it going to work?
I know.
But yeah, we're here. Right, enough with talking.
So yeah, who have we got today?
Who do we have today? Today we have Priscilla Pollara, an amazing PR and communication expert.
Oh my gosh, you best be on our A game then.
Oh yeah, all behaving. Hello, Priscilla.
Hello. Hi,
well
done
welcome.
for getting to a year, guys. Happy birthday.
Thank you so
congratulations
much.
and happy birthday.
Thank you. I absolutely love your jacket. I think
it's the spring.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
You can't tell in here, but it's actually roaringly sunny outside. We're in the wrong place for the one time of the year, but anyway.
Right, so shall we start with the beginning? Your favourite thing.
Yes, exactly.
So, Fulham, Parsons Green. Let's talk a bit about why around here.
Well, I don't know. You better ask my parents. Actually, my life started in Rome, in Italy. That's where I'm from. That's where I was born. And actually, my name in Italian is not Priscilla. It's Priscilla. I was born on Via Priscilla, which is Priscilla Street or Priscilla Road or whatever you want to call it.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
I wasn't born on the pavement and in the street. There was actually a hospital.
Damn it. But I actually wanted to make a good story and a good podcast
I know.
about it.
It'd be front page news. Sadly, there was a hospital, so it's less exciting than that. Anyway, and then we eventually migrated to Chelsea first, and then we made our way down the King's Road to the new King's Road, obviously the better part, and found ourselves in this wonderful corner of the world. Parsons Green, actually. There we go. Look,
there you
go.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't thought about that. There we go. I'm on brand.
I'm wearing the magnolias and everything else.
Yes,
the
you
beauty
are.
of it.
And the
you
Italian
are
green.
the green.
Yeah.
And you, Melinda, are everything else.
Just the dirt of the streets.
Oh, there's no dirt in Parsons Green. It's too green to be, dirty.
So tell us a bit about life growing up as a teenager, like here in...
Well, you were a naughty child.
It's impossible to be naughty in Fulham.
Yeah, and look at your face. It looks so angelic.
Never naughty. I mean, the teen years in Parsons Green, there were obviously lots of watering holes to have fun in. Everything was a walkable distance. Putney, the river, obviously back down the King's Road the other way. And I think I was just saying to you before that actually at the time, I think suppose still is, but there were a lot of Europeans living here. So perhaps they were British, but they all spoke other languages. And so it felt quite... I don't know. I didn't really know what I was expecting. You suppose you
exotic.
You grow up somewhere and you don't really sort of realise. But there were lots. The young crowd, and what I mean by that is those who were working in their early 20s or perhaps just in their 20s. The perception of age when you're a teenager is quite wild. You think people are old at 29. Anyway, but all of them, the ones who always seemed to not have a day of work to go to when the sun was out and on the green, it was just naked bodies, well, half naked anyway. Anyway, they all seem to be Australian and South African. And I do hope that there's still I do think there is quite a strong contingent still of them. But at the time, it was really obvious and noticeable to me. But I lived in the Lions houses, the streets of Parsons Green, and there were so many families just like ours that were who basically become British, London live, lovely place to live, but they all had a Spanish background or a French one, mostly French, and lots of Italians too. So we all felt very at home. But it's what a wonderful place to grow up and live. But it really hasn't changed an enormous amount, bar the odd shops and cafes, obviously, and coffee shops changing. But I actually remember where the Starbucks is now. It used to be the Seattle Coffee Company. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that.
Oh,
wow.
I know too. Guys,
You should.
come on, right.
Yeah, I know.
Get me a third mic. No, it was Seattle Coffee. And I think, although I'm not quite
Was
sure.
it a good
they
coffee?
Were born, well, I didn't really drink it at the time.
Okay,
My
yeah,
mother,
of
who
course,
is obviously a very strict Italian, taste test when it comes to coffee, did go there a lot. And I think, but then coffee shops were not really the thing, were they?
No, absolutely
but
not.
You'll have to check this, but I think that the company that's there now did buy out that company, which is why it changed hands. But it's never actually been anything other than
A coffee
A
shop.
coffee shop.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's a one to remember.
Yeah.
It's right about that.
Yes. So otherwise, it's really. I know Fulham's not just Parsons Green, but I always do think of Parsons
It's the
Green. When I
heart
think
of
of
Oh,
Fulham.
that's what I was
for me,
thinking.
it is. Yeah,
it really is. It's a focal point.
It
Isn't
is. And then when you realise you're wrong, you're actually glad because it's because it stretches so far. I mean, I remember on the Wandsworth Bridge Road, Gogglebox was
Oh
on the
my
end,
gosh, yes.
on the end of Studridge Street, and I mean all sorts. And there are little flavours of the old.
Oh, I love talking about it old and
It'll,
how it used to be. You know,
the
Going to get
Italians who-
videos, that was a
Going
treat.
to get
Yes,
videos
yes.
and popcorn. I
Yeah,
mean, why
yeah,
would you
it's
buy
Friday.
popcorn in a
Let's go and
bag?
grab, like a
Yeah.
nice film and some
Yeah.
popcorn. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
maybe at home with the friends.
Yeah.
Right. So it
And
seems like you had.
that Italian restaurant Il Pagliaccio has always been
I love
completely
it.
nuts
Yeah.
and wonderful and beautiful and
Yeah.
as exotic in its colours as it is now. So some things don't change, including
I-
the people in it, clearly.
Yeah, no, I love consistency, and I think that place, does have it, and the recipes are the same, and you just twitch
The
and clicks
music.
and the music and people. You do feel like if you want to have a little bit of an escape, it feels like they paid us to be talking about them. But enough with you having a wonderful childhood in Parsons Green and around, and you have taught us today some good lessons, about the coffee shop and everything else. But tell us about what did you want to be when you were little
gosh.
and.
A ballerina.
Okay.
And unfortunately, if there are any children listening to this, when you blow out your candles and wish to be a ballerina for more than 15 years or whatever it was, it doesn't really work because I did do quite a bit of it until I was actually quite late into my teens, but obviously was not the next Darcy
So
Bustle.
you wanted to be a professional ballerina?
Yeah.
Right. So what changed?
Too
Living-
tall.
Yeah, okay.
Too tall. And I suppose I was at school and, it sort of eventually gets drummed out of you. And, sports wonderfully are a big thing for girls now. And you do get sucked in more and more. Or I did anyway. And of
Yeah.
course, you start to lose those extracurricular. And then you find other things like boys and the Sloaney Pony. And suddenly the bar and, what do they call those things you put over your leg warmers?
Yeah.
Become, sorry. Yeah, there you go. Such a long time ago. Become less important. But I still am a regular visitor to the Opera House and watch the same ballets every year or every 2 years again and again and again.
Well, some things never changed.
Still have
And the
a
music
love.
never changes. I
Exactly.
mean, if you watch the Nutcracker every Christmas,
Yes.
you enjoy the fact that it is absolutely, and most people say, gosh, it's the same, does anything change? In fact, some ballets do interpret it differently, but no, and you think actually that's why you go. So, yeah.
Right. So how did we get to communications and PR? And once a journalist, always a journalist?
Yes. Yeah.
So how
Well,
did that come across? Was it one of those things your parents were like, you love talking, my friend. You should go and represent others or make them come, get all of the life out of them. And, you tell me, what is that you do? Because if people are thinking about PR, they'll be like, ugh.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that too.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So do tell. I thought it was just myself. Thinking, who works in PR? What a boring
No one ever
thing.
says that apart from me. So I'm so glad that when
That's your
the
EFP.
criticism gets hurled our way, I can share it with you. What happened? Gosh, well, I suppose I always wished to be a ballerina, but actually, what my vocation was writing, and I have always been squirreled in a corner writing, whether it was fantasy paragraphs of novels I'd never write, but I always gave it a good go and read quite a bit too. I was obviously brought up bilingually, and I have gone on to learn 2 other languages, so in total 4, and I hope to add more when I get older and have time to do that, although the sponge will not be working as fast then. So the thing is, when you speak lots of languages, which you will know, Zara, you know that you can speak to people and write to people and read from others it can mean the same thing, but the nuance is always very different.
100%. Yeah.
Communication just fascinates me because of that.
You should see my life being married with a British. But I'm not British. Zara, it makes no sense. I said, well, in my head, it does.
Yes, no, absolutely.
But it's also what comes outside of just language as well, isn't it? It's other nuances and mannerisms and emotions.
Yes. And I mean, English, I think it's always knocked because everybody speaks it now. And actually, it's a complex language, and to speak it extremely well with all the various complexities, which you don't need to get into now, is a wonderful thing to actually get into. So it's the same for lots of other languages too. And so I've always been very interested in communication and how to do it. And I remember someone once told me that learning languages were ladders into new worlds, and it couldn't be more right. And
I think we just have a title for our lovely
there we go.
episode.
Yeah, that's a fabulous expression.
Yeah, that's an amazing expression.
Good. Well, it's not mine. I can't. Anyway, I shall credit it to whoever it was. But it's absolutely true. And I went to, when I got older at school, I learnt more and more languages, and I did it from a very strong base. So I was very lucky. But I also enjoyed it. And I know there are a lot of people who could speak or who were very gifted but had no interest. I really am. And I have to say, I'm always a little concerned with, the rise in AI, which we won't talk about today. But generally with languages, it's so sad that it's not so much, oh gosh, thank God I can get past how difficult certain elements are of German by just using X, Y, and Z, because actually there's a joy in trying to understand how to unlock.
I agree.
I mean, they say things like, if you can make someone laugh in a foreign language, you've made it.
Yes.
That's not true, because of course you can make them laugh in various ways, and you've probably completely screwed up what you were trying to say.
Yes.
But generally, it's true that if you can get under the skin, and I think, by taking these shortcuts, you don't get under the skin. Anyway, so my dream was always to really understand how to get through to people better, and to be able to read their language and to write in theirs.
Well, that's beautiful.
Has always been a thing. But Zara, I think it's probably the same for you.
Well, yeah, but today's not about me. So
That's
how
true.
about
Right,
let's
sorry.
say, who is it about?
Carrying on. Okay,
So then
yeah.
journalism came before what you're doing now in terms of
Absolutely,
having...
yeah. I was at, all of my A-level subjects were humanities. I wrote a lot of my right hand nearly had to be amputated for the amount that I was writing. There was no time. I mean, there was typing, but they needed it to be longhand. So I went to university and I read English at one of the best universities for English at that time. And I just, the thought of not carrying on that fantastic A-level where it was all about interpreting text and understanding, even though it was in English, I did the other ones too, but that particular one, it was all about trying to understand what they were trying to say. I had to take it on because I thought I cannot let this stop here. And that's exactly what I did. And at university, I wrote a lot for the newspaper, which at the time was extremely, perhaps now too, but it was award-winning, which meant that it had eyes on it. It didn't mean that it was the best. And I started to make inroads with writing for the BBC in the county that I was in at the time. But I just knew I couldn't wait to get back to London because this is the engine room of the country, but it's the engine room for me anyway. I just feel without it, I feel retired. It drives me insane.
I understand why your workshops are selling out. You really are such a joy to listen to.
Well,
it's all about communication. Yeah, but it's amazing, and I do find myself a lot into it. And I genuinely feel like everything that moves in this world is communication in any shape or form.
Absolutely.
From nature to us human beings.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you got into writing and into journalism. And how come you're still into journalism?
Well, as I said, I couldn't wait to get back to London, and I found myself via a small little detour of a few months via magazines at Condé Nast. I found myself at the London Evening Standard, which is
fantastic.
No longer as
so
a force
sad.
as it was. Then we had, and when I started, we had 3 editions a day. So, things changed in the paper. I mean, news changes, and there was no 24-hour news then. But even small items, I was working on the Londoners' Diary, which, I hope somebody writes a history of the London Star. I believe that it's underway because quite a few journalists that people know, well-known ones, high profile, and also not, who've become authors or gone on to other things, have actually gone through the London Star. But yes, so we changed items depending on the interest and how we'd gauge if they were, picking up interest in the street or the man on the tube, as my colleagues used to say. So it all started. It's
you
sort
are quite fascinated about it. It's like Melinda. I think she would. Yeah,
I actually appeared in the London Star.
Right.
Yeah.
Did I write the story?
I don't know. Do you know?
Can you imagine? This will be like
no. I mean, there was
breaking
highlights.
news.
I'm joking.
No, I'm going to have to dig it out because at the time I was a press officer at an advertising agency, and they wrote about my relationship with my current husband, and there was a photo.
God, I'm so sad. I apologise on behalf of all journalists.
And I can't remember how it came
Can
to
you
be.
imagine?
But yeah, early 90s. So yeah.
Okay,
there's a story.
That was definitely not me.
No.
I'm old, but not that old. So I wasn't me. I wasn't behind that one. I hope it was the positive piece.
Yes, it was.
It usually was, I have to say. I then moved on to another newspaper that had more of an interesting look at relationships and wanted to go a little deeper occasionally and has
what was
annoyed the Daily Mail.
Okay.
To which I owe an enormous amount. So no negativity from me at all. I mean, it's
interesting.
Wonderful place to learn to do business because it's thick skin. You got to be fast. You got to find a story. You got to understand. You got to cut out the kind of the cream at the top and go for it. And I think that's quite a good skill in almost any business venture. Do you remember what it's like when it was like when I used to do this a lot, but write essays at school of any kind, a story perhaps, and you were really proud of your first line or your first paragraph, and then the teacher would put a thick red line through the thing which it had taken you quite so, and they'd say that's because you're the actual story or the beauty of this, the meat is in the second paragraph. And you think, and that's quite crushing.
It is.
Oh God, the second paragraph's awful. But actually no, and that's what it is to be a journalist. You've got to know what makes a story and how to get it out of somebody quite quickly. So
still writing now?
Always writing, yeah.
For freelance or for
as a freelance, quite often anonymously.
Oh wow, you can still do that in this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, under pseudonyms. We all have different names.
I love that. It's more interesting than I thought it is. It's like Sherlock Holmes of
well, it's only if it's convenient for everyone to do that, but often it's about ghosting. So you write things for others. I do quite a lot of speech writing, so there's a bit of that as well.
Well, that's brilliant. So, you never know, because when you're looking into you on the internet, who you are. That's why we have this amazing podcast here, because there is more to it than just the Priscilla Pollara that we can find on LinkedIn. And I think that you, when yourself, you are a brand. You really are. And I know you don't look at yourself as being a brand because you think it's something that's big, but what you do is unique to you, and the way you do that perfectly, communicate. Like, I looked at videos and I'm looking, when you post stuff or with other people that, we've got quite of a, same network of people that we know. So I always look, and it's great to see the consistency. Now, let's go into your USP and, why...
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'd love to know. So, because I think you're right. What you're saying is fascinating because you see it from both sides. So I think that's always a really unique position to be in. It doesn't happen very often because you've got clients, and clients are trying to raise their profile, whatever, but be that editorially or through delivering a good speech or whatever. So then, what led you? You're still carrying on. You're still doing journalists to found your current company.
This isn't a lockdown story, but in lockdown, the very beginning of it, I was writing for a national newspaper, and I had a bit of extra time on my schedule, and I decided I had an Instagram account which I didn't really use. It didn't really have a name. I don't even know what it was. Priscilla Pics, as in selects, but it didn't have anything on it. I think I had a few photographs of Rome, but it was nothing. But I used the DM function. This is again something that's really moved on because Instagram has become a very big sort of video platform. I used the DM function to find people to write about, and it was an interiors. I slid into their DMs before it was a thing. We used to find interiors companies or, people, kitchen table businesses, if not something else, that nobody knew about. And I found them on purpose because I wanted to write about people who were basically the small guy.
Yeah.
Not small in size, but not small in dreams, I always say.
Yes,
'Cause
I love
anyone
that.
who calls themselves a small business, I always think that's so lovely and you're part of a really cute community. But no, because you've put a ceiling on your head. Don't say that to me. Tell me you're small in size. That's cool. But everything else, no. Anyway, I used to find them and I used to write about them. And then in that lockdown period, I had a bit of time. So I started to post up on Instagram, which was much easier then because, didn't have many rules. No one was telling you what to do. You just thought, hey,
the
the children are
algorithms
having
weren't
a nap.
in full action.
Absolutely. There was no, the algorithm was like, please just post. Children were napping and I thought, right, I'm going to put some up. And then I just had an influx of people saying, how, can that happen for me? Who do I need to go to for that sort of exposure? Could you look at my website and rewrite it? Because I think I'm not really saying what I should be saying. We have a really good product or idea, or, we're going to change
It's not getting my message across properly.
I used to say, oh yeah, come on, send it over. And it has gone through so many evolutions since then.
I love that. It's just the enthusiasm and you making them.
Yeah, I just can't think. It's just, it goes back to that language thing. You land in a country, you don't know the language very well, but you know the odd thing about coffee and maybe ordering beer or something. But you feel, everybody who hears this can relate, even if they've been one of those people at 10 thinking, oh, don't ever give me a French vocab test again. But it's that feeling of feeling completely silenced and trapped because you really want to say something, but then you aren't able to because they simply do not know English, which is fine. And that's the way it should be around the world. But when you get to that person who doesn't understand you, it is very alarming because you are completely silenced. You have nothing. And it's that feeling of, right, come on, you have put blood, sweat, tears, toil, maybe all your savings into this one thing. Please, will you do something about it? And they say, oh, I really want to. And I think, right, this is it then. Let's go for it. So that's where it's come from. And the business has grown. It didn't even have a name then. And the business has grown enormously to help everybody with that problem. So I work a lot in corporate training where people are not talking across the table. And I use something called Lego Serious Play to get people chatting and discussing and building the future of what they're trying to do as a team or a business. And you would be amazed at how little people know each other and how fluently they speak. And yep, I still help all the kitchen table entrepreneurs as well as a lot of big guys too for this on this very point, which is I've built something great. I'm so proud of it. We had an amazing amount of success, but now it's plateaued. What do we do? Or I've got something great and I don't know how to talk about it at all. I'm at the start and I know that everything is on the marketing and what do I do next?
It is. I think this is great. And there's so many people, exactly what you said out there, that would, they've got so much life in them and they've got, the dreams are so big and you can tell that they've got potential. I know it's a big word, but exactly, that's exactly what it is. And you are just, helping getting that diamond out and polishing and just getting them out. Yeah,
diamond polisher.
Yeah, diamond polisher.
But sometimes you're drowning as well because I hate to keep using the word small business, but if you are a small business, you're so nose to the grindstone in terms of what you're actually trying to achieve and do. And the rest of it, you're sort of like, I don't have time or I don't have the experience or the know-how for this. So that's probably kind of where you step in. Yeah.
Well, you have to wear all the hats and that's part of the excitement of it. It's part of where you get the enthusiasm. But sometimes I think one of the, all hats are important, but one of the hats my hat, the one I represent, which is almost like a sort of hat shop. But anyway, that one, because it depends. That. Just because everybody wants different hats. It's like a costume shop. I should call it the costume shop. Anyway, that hat is usually to do with confidence. And that's where I get very upset for people, because if it's imposter syndrome is so overused, so I use it because people know what it means, but essentially it's the confidence of not feeling like at 55 you've started for the first time. How am I going to, this is embarrassing, I have wrinkles. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, nobody would think that was an issue, but you do. But all the way down to much more serious points. If it's a confidence issue, I just think, no, you've got to make me work with you, because this is not the reason why you're not going to go forward. If there was a real flaw in the plan, fly in the ointment. I was trying to think tea in the ointment. No, that's not right. Fly in the ointment. Then okay, then let's talk about a strategy problem and a pothole. But if this is about confidence, because you've never done this before, I'm going to help you.
Oh, I love that.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
That's
it just reminds me when I was trying to pull this on Melinda. Let's do a podcast. Absolutely not.
Just ring me.
Look at her. She's flying.
The green jacket says you are going to do it.
Yeah, but
there's no.
But also, I think we are very similar in energy. I think if you have the right energy at the table, it doesn't really matter. How do you see things? That big energy will show you how things actually are to be looked at. I think sometimes that's important.
If this was longer, we'd have to go into astrology, but we won't.
Well, I wouldn't have gone that far, but you're right.
I really could, but
I
won't today.
I think we need one of those drinks at a Sloane Pony. We start at 12 in the afternoon.
Well, it's only across the road, guys, and it's sunny.
We shut at 12 in the evening, so we've got 12 hours to talk all about astrology. No, I think we could actually.
I think we could, but it does come down to energy. And I think sometimes people feel that they run out of it because of the hats.
Do you say no to clients? So if you don't
I struggle with it. But I suppose arrogantly, I would suggest that I'm sure I could always add something. So in that situation, because often it's about, I hate to say this because I am not qualified at all in this area, but it's almost a little bit like a therapy session. And I say that only because they say that to me. So they say things like, you had to ask me the questions so that I could answer them, but and I realised I already knew the answers. So it's almost like you throw the kind of hot potato in the air and then they catch it.
Right.
But it's not a therapy session, and I'm not a coach in that respect, but it does turn into that. So occasionally it's sort of, they recognise perhaps that a focus has been a focus for too long and shouldn't be because there's something so much better. It's about putting your best foot forward, and occasionally they forget it. One can forget to do that. I do always like to work with somebody one-off. So it does. They don't have to become long-term clients. I often have said, if you speak to me on that matter, you probably don't need to speak to me again. Mm-hmm. And that almost is meant to reassure them to think, do I need to now sign up with an agency after this for 4 months? Because these are expensive contracts.
Yes.
And I would say, no, remember your focus, craft your message better, remember who your audience is, because that's the key thing. A lot of people just talk to an audience, an amphitheatre, but guess what? People will yawn in that amphitheatre, but the ones who aren't yawning are your audience. So you need to speak to them only. It's actually a much smaller job than you think. And if you want to go on with an agency, that's fine, but you must tell them what you know is true about your marketing, what you need to get out of this. So in a way, I won't say no if they're struggling, because I will just put them on the right track and then off they go. You'd be amazed at what people pay for.
Exactly.
The amount of times I've heard
feet photos and everything.
The amount of times I hear that they're in WhatsApp groups for particular types of marketing and sales help, £10 here, £20 there, and they don't get anything out of it. It's like being part of 10 gyms. You're not even going to one.
Exactly.
Walking to the gym is enough exercise.
But you pay for it.
Yes, and so I think actually, and I think in the end people do come to that realization, not necessarily with just sort of PR and reaching clients like that, but other things. I just think, if I pay, once and well, I don't probably have to do this again. It doesn't have to be just PR, but other things too. Photography. A lot of people think, oh well, I've got an iPhone. And my friend did a photography course. No, just get a photographer, get the lighting right. Like you've got the sound in this room here. It's important just to do it right. We could easily be doing this at a kitchen table. A lot of people do podcasts.
100%.
A lot of people do.
Or in the
but
living
perhaps
room.
It's the reassurance. That there is a framework and someone else is going to take care of it.
There is something going on which everybody needs to go through. Every guest, obviously. We've got
I'm unprepared because I've come.
That's good because
I don't know. Oh God, what are they going to ask me?
You very honestly said that you're not looking at anyone. You prefer to be objective. So let's be objective.
I am completely.
So it's we've just putting out there a question each that you probably wouldn't expect to be asked. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
It's one each.
Yeah.
That's 2 questions.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. That's the
Mine's
goal.
Mine's an easy one.
Now's the time.
Okay, go on then. Death row meal?
No, favourite Fulham memory.
Oh gosh. Fulham memory. Well, behind you I've got Fulham FC, which is not my memory, but my younger brother is a die-hard Fulham fan. I mean, it's and the other one is a Chelsea fan, so it's very it's quite. Luckily, I don't live with them anymore.
Yeah,
I don't live with them anymore.
Same neighbourhood.
Same neighbourhood, that's true. Every weekend is difficult traffic-wise for both reasons. Anyway.
What a luck.
Right, best Fulham memory. Gosh. Oh my gosh. I have so many. Oh no. This
First
is gonna be
love?
hard.
Having your children?
Oh dear Lord. I'm going to go for a daily memory as opposed to one particular
that's a good
one.
one.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Oh gosh, this is going to sound very contrite. Sometimes I'm on the tube, obviously, with my children, going to Sloane Square from here, and I did that every single day, twice a day, to go to school.
Down the memory lane.
The District Line, I've got a sketchy relationship with it. It is either extremely reliable and it gives you that wonderful ability to do lots of work before you go under the tunnels, which a lot of people don't understand on the Northern Line.
Every time you text, I'm going to
I
be
know,
out of the tunnel in a second.
I'm texting Zara saying, because obviously there's no Wi-Fi on the District Line when eventually you are in a tunnel. In a way, if you look at timelines through your life, I've been looking at that green line, this particular end of it, all my life, looking at it thinking, I told my parents, I've gone through the ages with it, right? So when I first used to sort of go out as a teenager thinking I told them I was at Earl's Court, but I'm actually still at Sloane Square. So that means I have added 14 minutes. They think I'm coming in 14 minutes. And I'll just have to say I was in a tunnel between this station and this station. I know that line like the back of my hand. And I suppose my daily journey to school and back, which often was taken with anyone I would find on the platform who I already knew, or one of my parents. It's and I take it every day. So I feel like I'm just getting older and older on the District Line. But that really, it actually doesn't change.
That could be a
it
good
doesn't
title
change.
of a book.
It's just a consistent
It doesn't
thread.
change.
Yeah.
It doesn't change.
But that's
Everything
beautiful,
changes
isn't
around
it?
it in London. The tube actually has changed, the train, but it's still as noisy as ever.
Yeah, and it's the same track.
I love
it is,
that.
and you can't get to Fulham without it. It is. It describes the area. It gets you down here on that line that goes down to the underground map. But yes, but otherwise, gosh, I've had so many milestone birthdays here, and I can tell you various experiences in most shops around here which have gone and come back.
That I think needs to be a very well sorted trip at a pub.
I know.
We need to have one of those.
It's
where
before
we hear
lunch.
them all.
I'll stop there.
Yeah. Right. So my question, going back to you wanting to be a ballerina. Let's close our eyes and think, how would it have been if Priscilla now, would have been full-time ballerina? So what?
Well, I think I'd be retired. I'd be too old.
So what? Yeah. What is that feeling? Knowing that you have been so in love with being a ballerina, to now still having that, feeling inside when you go and watch other people doing it. Do you leave it with them?
I do. There were a few years where while I was living in Fulham, we actually left for Japan for a bit. And I lived in Tokyo. And in Tokyo, I was also part of quite a lovely ballet school there.
Wow.
And I did perform quite a bit with them. And these were the big ballets, so Nutcracker and Sleeping Beauty, and also back in London too. So when I actually am watching these ballet performances at various points of the year, I do feel that moment of this is a cue, even though I'm sitting on the other side. I absolutely live. And we talked about languages, so sorry to be corny, but actually listening to music you've heard over and over and over and over and over again, that never changes. The music never changes. The choreography might, the interpretation might, unless you're at the Royal Ballet, and they tend to stick to their things. But, they do really put on quite a sort of predictable format, but the music never changes. You can't change a musical score, certainly not Tchaikovsky's.
I wanted to ask this because they say that real passions never die. Regardless what life takes you and who you are deep down, I can see that, like little Priscilla in her, doing the lovely Swan Lake and, whatever.
I never quite got to that one. But ballet, because it is I'm not musical in any other way, but when I listen to the ballet, there's a language that doesn't change. You hear it and you think, you're back to being 5 with that candle, thinking, come on, this time, it's got to work. So yes, there we go.
Yeah, well, the only thing that I can say is that this definitely should be a discussion that will carry on for longer hours after this podcast
Part 2,
is
here
finished.
we come.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh
yeah,
gosh,
we've
it's
had-
lovely to meet you.
Yeah, we've had a great time.
Yeah, thank you for celebrating Fulham.
Oh gosh,
I think
we
well
love
done
it.
you.
I just want to do a one before you introduce our beautiful sponsors, just to talk a bit about Polo in the Park and Family Day that's coming in June. And we've got an amazing competition on our Instagram. So go there and do tell us who would you go there. Your children, it's all about them, obviously. But, just a lovely mention how June is around the corner. Now, over to you, Melinda.
So thank you so much. It's been a really fantastic conversation. And before we leave, I'd like to say huge thanks to the team at VoxPod here at this gorgeous studio. We're actually in the smaller studio today, which is actually quite fun, but we'll be back in our regular home soon. And a massive thanks to our sponsors, Fulham FC Foundation. So without them, this podcast wouldn't be possible. So huge thanks to them.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you.